Hey everyone, with this Gemini CM a couple of days away, I wanted to talk about what I'm expect to see there and what I envision a Finals A winner being. I think the minimum stat line will be around 1000 speed, 1100 stam, 600 power, 420 guts, 300 wit, and 2 recovery skills with an S in long. Obviously, matchmaking can bless you, and you could probably win the CM2 with a stat line less than this. This stat line is considered for end closers because I see end closers being or more specifically, I see Gold Chip with this stat line winning the finals A group. It's very important to try to get as much speed as you can due to the final leg being about 800 meters of the track, or about 30 to 35 seconds, which really favors end closers. If you are able to make an A rank Uma, enter the graded league. Unless you want to pull out a calculator for the open league to try to get enough stamina to run a 3200 at B rank, it'd be much harder to create an Uma to win in the open league, since you would need to win the finals in the open league in order to get the same amount of rewards as the graded league. Now, why am I recommending 2 recovery skills even at 1100 stam? You need to keep in mind that all skills that aren't your Uma's unique skills and the green skills still need to pass a wit check. So you can plan to live off of 1 recovery skill or swinging maestro at 1100 stam, but with 300 wit, it's a 70% chance to proc 1 skill. With 2 recovery skills, as long as it's not something like breath of fresh air or cooldown, which can misfire, your chances raises to 91%. Losing 30% of your races because you're solely relying on swinging maestro is not worth the extra skill points and stats. Even if you had 400 wit, which is very hard to hit with the rest of your stat line, it is a 77.5% chance to proc a skill, and then a 5% chance of failure procking 2 recovery skills. So I don't think it's worth the extra 100 points in wit to raise your chances from 91% with 2 recovery skills to 95% with 2 recovery skills. 300 wit is generally where I can see someone reliably hitting on their ace runs. Also keep in mind that this is a function, so having just a couple of points short of 300 won't be as big of a shift. It is not like an Uma is dead if it doesn't have 300 wit. It definitely just has a lower chance of proccing a skill. Starting off with positions, we have frontrunners. Once again, frontrunners is always an all-in strategy, and you must have a minimum of 2 frontrunners if you are planning to build frontrunner aces. I highly recommend not to build frontrunners, and if you're adamant on bringing frontrunners, you'll most likely lose to an end closer. This is extremely hard to build, and even with Saiyan Sky, the conditions are way too hard to fulfill for a unique that does almost nothing. Groundworks will always be necessary on a frontrunner to create a lead, and you'll always want mid-race skills to activate to try and run away from a gold ship closing in on you. The other issue with frontrunners right now is that you don't really have reliable gold recovery skills. A lot of frontrunners don't have recovery skills because they're not meant to be brought into long tracks in their potentials. The only gold recovery skill you can think about picking up is Restless, which comes from the Innis Fujin Guts card, which you don't want to run in your ace deck. Otherwise, you're gambling on cooldown in an already weak position. One benefit to frontrunners is that dead frontrunners can block out other Umas, so well, obviously you don't want to skip on stam. If a frontrunner does die, you most likely as a frontrunner you won't get block, and if you die on the railing, it's almost impossible for the Uma behind to make up that distance from having to go around. I really don't recommend building frontrunners unless you are conceding the fact that you probably won't try to win the graded league. Next up, we have Pace Chasers. They're extremely strong when they get the free promotion, since frontrunners are not commonly ran, and one Pace Chaser will take the role of a Pace Maker. This means that they will gain about 3 length lead or more due to everyone following that Pace Chaser rather than following a frontrunner because they do not exist. They also have access to Gourmand from the Special Week event card if you played during the first couple of weeks of this game's launch. I think the stat line you need on a Pace Chaser in order to beat a end closer or a gold ship is so high that I also cannot recommend building this unless you either have very strong supporter cards and legacies to build maybe a 1200 1100 long ass Pace Chaser with high power, or anything like that, since pace chasers don't have an acceleration skill. Next up, we also have late surgers. They frequently get blocked due to not having many mid-race skills to try and overtake the Umas in front of them, thus hugging the inner rail. I'll go ahead and talk about this mechanic later on. Late surgers also have the issue where you don't have access to a gold recovery skill except cooldown. I think this is a very hard position to build unless you have a gold recovery skill inside your potentials. You could try to gamble with on your left to increase your acceleration during the late race, but when it's a medium and a long track, on your left has a bigger track length to misfire because of the fact that it hits during a random portion during the phase. You generally see on your left being gambled on sprints and miles because there's a higher chance that you can actually use the skill at the correct time. It's also kind of hard as a late surger to be 6th place or lower because generally there's going to be so many end closers in the Gemini Cup that I can't imagine you can reliably rely on this skill. Next up, we can talk about end closers, which compared to the other strategies has the highest top speed, especially with high speed stats and an S in the distance aptitude. They frequently get blocked if your Uma does not take an outside lane, and I have Narita Taishin as my example here. Before we continue to move on, I do want to talk about Narita Taishin and show why I don't believe she is S tier. Here's a little infographic I have on Narita Taishin. She was considered S tier because of her skill Encroaching Shadow, which was the access to the only gold skill acceleration for this CM in the current game. The issue is, and I will pull up races as example, is that Narita Taishin has no way of maneuvering around the Umas in front of her. Most of the times, she would utilize Encroaching Shadow and then get stuck behind the weaker Umas in front of her, like a late surger or dying front debuffers. On stream, I have done a lot of these practice room matches, and we can see sometimes Narita Taishin can win because she decides to leave her lane and actually overtake the people in front of her, but the majority of the time, she is unable to win. Another issue with Narita Taishin is that she loses access to Nemesis, and I'll go ahead and pull up the Uma simulator to show you why. Okay, so here we are in the Uma simulator. Narita Taishin's Nemesis activates during the final corner, and you have to be 7th to 5th place. You also have to be overtaking another Uma. The final corner starts at the 25-50 meter mark. This is approximately 400 meters after you started accelerating. If you use a skill like Encroaching Shadow, let me give her a little bit more stam, you can see here that her acceleration is significantly higher than my gold ship. When you have this much acceleration and you're overtaking Umas during the acceleration phase, there's almost no way you can be 7th to 5th place by the time you hit this final corner. If your Narita Taishin activates Nemesis at this point of the race, most likely she already lost to the 3 gold ships in front of her. This makes it so Narita Taishin essentially doesn't have a unique ultimate. You are only running an Uma with Encroaching Shadow. Alright, right here I have an example pulled up of a race with Narita Taishin. In this race, we have 2 pace chasers, 2 late surgers, and 4 end closers. Alright, right around here is where position keep ends, about halfway through the middle of the race. So now everybody will be trying to close the gap to the front runners and the pace chasers. We can see Taishin taking an outside lane prior to Anchors Aweigh, which is the 50% race mark. We can see that this Narita Taishin is on the outside lane. Now that the gold ships have procced Anchors Aweigh, we can see them slowly creep up faster than the other 2 end closers on this. Going into this final lane, Narita Taishin is not trying to overtake anybody. We can see gold ships with Anchors Aweigh already caught up with the late surgers. And now we should be accelerating into the final leg, so we should see Narita Taishin proc Encroaching Shadow right here. There we go. So Narita Taishin procs Encroaching Shadow, but because of Anchors Aweigh, the gold chips aren't anywhere close to Narita Taishin. Because Narita Taishin doesn't have Nemesis on this track, Anchors Aweigh essentially gives the length lead to gold chip that Narita Taishin would have from Encroaching Shadow. So you can see Encroaching Shadow proc here, but because there is such a blockade up front, because the gold chips have already overtaken people using Anchors Aweigh, we can see that Narita Taishin has a very hard time breaking out, because she would have to essentially move over 3 lanes to run around the entire pack. Using all that time that Narita Taishin was blocked for, we can see that she's unable to match the top speed with the length distance that all of the other Umas have already gotten. In the end, though, in this race, I lose to this Simbali Rudolph, who was a late surger. So obviously, there's just always RNG into this. I'm not saying gold chip is a 100% victory. I've also seen Narita Taishin's win. I'm not saying Narita Taishin is like F tier. I'm just saying that she is not an undisputed S tier, as I don't necessarily see her winning as often as she should be as an S tier. This was a Simbali I lost to. Most of the times you won't be facing a 1300 A+ Uma. This Simbali also has 1200 speed with right-handed and spring runner, double circled with long S, and a late surger's corners, late surger straightaways, playtime's over, corner adept. That's 4 mid-race skills, 1200 max speed, long S with 120 speed from the green skills. Let me go ahead and move over to the race mechanics and explain why Anchors Aweigh is so busted. When an Uma has more target speed than the Uma in front of them, essentially, if the distance gap divided by the speed gap is less than 15 seconds, meaning that she can catch up within 15 seconds at the current speed difference, your Uma will recognize the person in front as an overtake target. In overtake mode, while you have an overtake target, you find the innermost and outermost Uma of the crowd using this formula. Then for each of them, the lane to the left or to the right is a candidate, and the candidate is considered for the next step if there was no visible Uma. Once they have decided an Uma and the candidate for which lane, depending on the phase, and if they are inside or out, your Uma will move over to that lane. With Anchors Aweigh, 9 times out of 10, your gold ship will be faster than the Uma in front of her. This causes gold ship to take the outside lane to try to pass the pack. And as you're entering the final acceleration zone off of Anchors Aweigh, since Anchors Aweigh on this track lasts 19.2 seconds, you're already on the outside track right when the hill is about to begin. This makes it very hard for a gold chip to be blocked out. I know off of one race, it's very hard to believe everything that I'm saying, but I've done almost about 100 of these custom races, and maybe about 40% of them, so like 40 races, I've faced against a Narita Taishin, and I've only seen Narita Taishin win at most 10% of those races. 4 to 6 races, maybe a Narita Taishin won, since they weren't blocked and they procced Encroaching Shadow. It's just the majority of the Narita Taishins I see just get instantly blocked out. Alright, here's another example race with Narita Taishin. This is the stat line we are currently looking at for it. I'll go ahead and play out the race and explain why I think Taishin is a little bit weaker than S tier. Let's go ahead and move over to when Anchors Aweigh can proc. So we can see here that we have 3 gold chips in 6th, 5th, and 4th. So 2 of these gold chips won't even be able to proc Anchors Aweigh. Now this Haru Ura does turn off Sleeping Lion, but that's not going to be a factor because this Narita Taishin has enough HP off of Swinging Maestro. So right now, Narita Taishin is forced into the outside lane because there is 3 gold chips hogging the inside lane. But as we round this corner, she will once again hug the inner rail. This is because, race mechanics wise, Umas would rather be closer to the inside lane than the outside one. You can see here that Swinging Maestro is procced on Narita Taishin, so she should live this course. We once again have two gold ships in front that both do not proc Anchors Aweigh because she is in 5th and 4th place. Enclosers generally are able to close the gap to the pace chasers. My Agnes Tachyon is a pace chaser. And we see 3 gold ships followed behind by a Narita Taishin and a Mayano Top Gun. Encroaching Shadow triggers on this Narita Taishin, and if you would believe the Uma Musume simulator, a Encroaching Shadow should technically be a mean and a medium of 5 lengths because the increased acceleration, if all stats were equal. So, in theory, this Narita Taishin should be able to close 5 lengths off of Encroaching Shadow. And we know this Narita Taishin didn't die due to Stam because she was able to proc Encroaching Shadow, which is a skill that can only happen if you have enough stamina to do your last spurt. But the issue here is that Narita Taishin will almost assuredly get blocked. This gold ship used Anchors Aweigh prior to the final leg, thus took the outside lane to go around this Mayano Top Gun. Because of this Narita Taishin essentially has no lane to take because she has to move over 3 lanes in order to get unblocked. So it doesn't matter that she procced Encroaching Shadows to close in 5 lengths when she is unable to run those 5 lengths. She's continued to be stuck behind Uma's because she's just unable to maneuver around. Due to how long she was stuck for, every single encloser has now accelerated to their top speed going into this corner after 200 meters. Once again, I think that Narita Taishin was very well statted, and there's not much more you can ask for. Sure, Haru Ura turned off Sleeping Lion, but she proc Swinging Maestro, and at 1100 stam, with Swinging Maestro, she has enough HP to run the course. She does just eventually loses to a gold ship due to being blocked. Now, if Narita Taishin wasn't blocked, sure, she can win. That is what the potential of Narita Taishin is. On paper, this Narita Taishin should win. 5 lengths is an insane amount of distance. It's just extremely hard to build a Narita Taishin while picking up Encroaching Shadow and the 2 recovery skills, and in order to pick up other mid-race skills in order to emulate what Gold Ship can do. Losing your unique inherited ult, losing Nemesis here, makes it almost impossible for her to just stat check people. Anchors Aweigh, once again, is a 19.2 second ultimate. This translates to 5 meters. Anchors Aweigh only gives you 2 lengths of distance. But the repositioning of this skill, being able to maneuver around the Umas in front of you and take an outside lane, is valued much more than the 5 lengths that you can get off of proccing Encroaching Shadow for 3 seconds with the acceleration on this uphill. Have I lost to Narita Taishins? Yes. Have I lost to more gold ships in a lobby with a gold ship and a Narita Taishin? Also yes. I just think gold ship is consistently better than a Narita Taishin. This moves on to my next point about front Haru. Narita Taishin is a fraud. You should not be running a Haru specifically to disable Sleeping Lion. Good Taishins would have also just picked up cooldown instead of Sleeping Lion anyways, since Sleeping Lion and Encroaching Shadow is so expensive for her. Running a front Haru is a specific strategy in which you need mid-race skills to escape the position keep mechanic when there is a single front runner Haru. I counteract this by running a front runner debuffer, which is Air Groove, in order to not enter this position keep manipulation. I think if your team isn't built around front runner Haru, you shouldn't be running it. So what are the team comps I see? Gold Ship, and Gold Ship. If you could run 3 versions of Gold Ship, that's essentially what I would do. I think this cup is just Gold Ship's playground. It's too consistent for Gold Ship in order for other Umas to win. Sure, you might be able to get lucky and get a race here or there with other Umas, but a very mediocre gold chip can generally beat out other Umas. I don't think everyone can build a 1300 rated Symboli. Gold chip is very easy to build, and a very mediocre gold chip can very well just win you the finals. You will need to have significantly more stats or skills than an opposing gold chip in order to try and win. If you're asking about what my team comp is, I currently have a gold chip that I can go ahead and show, because I don't think anything else on my team matters. I've given up on the CM trying to work an off-meta comp or an off-meta Uma. I think it's significantly harder to win this CM than the first CM. I will probably bring a Daiwa Scarlet Pace Chaser and an Air Group debuffer. Let me go ahead and pull up my team. Here are the stats on my gold chip. I have 1140 speed, 1140 stam, 813 power with firm conditions, and 389 wit and a long S. I don't have straightaway Spurt because I was unable to get it from my inspirations, and I'm unable to get a gold chip with enough power for me to warrant dropping this gold chip for a straightaway Spurt gold chip. Straightaway Spurt I value at 150 power to 200 power, depending on how much you want to value straightaway Spurt, with the chances of it not passing the wit check, which will be at my wit around 20, a little over 20% of the races I run. I will not proc straightaway Spurt if I had it. Here was the deck, because I know people would ask. I have a pretty strong supported card deck, so it'll probably be a little bit harder to try to hit my stats if you don't have cards at a similar level. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Uma later to show you how they decide how much straightaway Spurt is equivalent to. Alright, so on the right here, I have my gold chip and the stats that it has, and then on the left, we have the straightaway Spurt at 670 power. So we can see here that it's about equivalent. A 0.02 length and a 0.01 length is pretty minuscule in difference. And this is a difference of about 140 power. Keep in mind, this power looks smaller than the number I was saying is because there's an uphill at the start of the race, thus having higher power for the start of the race generally gets you in front of all the other end closers. In a lot of my practice rooms, I would be at the very front of the end closers because I'm able to get through these uphills a little bit faster than the other gold chips that have straightaway Spurt, but not the 873 power I have with firm conditions. I did about 40 attempts to get this gold chip, and I just don't I don't like running gold chip. After this CM, I most likely won't be playing meta anymore, and I just think this CM is extremely boring to play in. If you have no qualms about running a gold chip, I just recommend putting in the healthiest gold chip that you can get, which is maybe around 1100 stam with Swinging Maestro and Go Home Specialist, and just try to win through matchmaking luck. It's extremely hard to get an Uma other than gold chip to win in this cup, but it is possible if you have the deck to support it and the legacies. That's about all for this video. I did not enjoy prepping or doing any of the practice races for this CM, so that is why this video came out a little bit later. Coming up soon, I'll have a video out for the legacy preparation for CM3. Thank you guys all for watching. Bye bye.